And it's another
Know
one.
that one. Tick,
Yeah.
tick, not
Tick.
TikTok.
Nope. Tick, tick.
Okay,
Tick,
sorry. I'm
tick,
just
tick,
thinking
tick.
of what
And this is
tick,
also going to
tick.
be a TikTok clip. All right. I'll make TikTok clip. All right. So this could be a TikTok clip with the app Tick, tick.
Tell him no, 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 no. Tell him no, 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 no. You've been trying to cater to all the needs. You've been feeling guilty for so long. Baby, they're not friends, they are enemies. Don't you tell them yes, tell them get lost. Cause every time you go and ask for help.
Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Reardon, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be having a guest episode of Coaching in Session. It's going to be the first one ever, and it's going to be exclusive. And when I mean exclusive, I mean like only 3 to 6 episodes are coming out every single year. And if you know anything about the podcast, we premiere Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So that means we are having about 156 episodes a year, and only 3 or 6 out of those episodes will be of guests. And the reason why I'm bringing on these guests are because they have a wonderful mindset, because they have been previous guests before, and they have an amazing story to tell. So I'm going to be introducing those guests now. So my first guest I'm going to be introducing is Amy. Thank you so much for coming on. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Thanks so much for having me. My name is Amy Scott. I am a financial coach for badass, purpose-driven women. And I really help women to get their financial shit together so that they are able to go after the goals and dreams they have in their own lives. And my website is amyscottcoaching.com, and my handle is Amy Scott Financial Coaching.
Perfect. And my next guest is going to be Eleni, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about herself.
Hi, thanks for having me. So my name is Eleni. I'm an author and entrepreneur, and I recently published a children's book, and I am offering coaching, and I'm looking to inspire fellow entrepreneurs. But most importantly, my mission in life has become to connect parents and educators with children, teach them how to connect with them organically. And you can find me at elenifuaxis.nyc. And my website is elenifuaxis.com.
And our third guest today on the panel is going to be Grace Spinkovitz.
Hi, thanks for having me, Michael. This is really so exciting. And to be with this group of women too, it's like, woo, I'm in the room. So I'm a lifestyle health coach. I help people just make small, consistent changes to the way that their life is, bringing traditional values and traditional principles, traditional wisdom into our modern day life. And this helps them create a life of health, energy, and happiness. I also am an online course creator, and I provide corporate wellness trainings for employee wellness programs for companies.
All right, perfect. And then last but not least, Midori.
Thanks for having me, Michael. This is very exciting to be here for your inaugural show. I feel so honored. So I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years, owned several different businesses. And the one that I am focusing on right now is called Fuel to Fire. And I'm all about helping entrepreneurs and leaders accelerate their big, exciting goals using a goal-setting methodology and accountability pods. And you can find more at fueltofire.co. And my handle is Midori Verity.
I want people to understand, because I put this in the disclaimer now whenever I have guests on the podcast, because I have so many people inquiring to be on the podcast now, where they actually have to fill out a form. Before it's kind of like, oh, you want to be on a podcast? You're a coach? Cool, I'll have you on. And that's what I do. But now it's a little bit different. Now I have to really be cognizant about quality control. And quality control is very, very important to me, because if I'm just putting out content and the content's not meaningful, or it doesn't have a purpose, then I have to really ask myself, what am I doing? And the questions I kind of want to ask everyone, kind of going around the room now, is the purpose that we bring, right? Because as a coach, we do bring purpose to our clients. And it's very important that we understand that purpose ourselves too. Because when we're working with a client, it doesn't feel like we're taking advantage of them, like they're paying for us for something that they can do themselves. Is because we are going to be providing a certain value. And quality control is so important for me. And I make sure all the guests that come on Coaching in Session now And I mean, even my episodes, if I record an episode and the episode is not good, guess what? The episode doesn't air. I delete the whole thing and I redo it. So, quality control is very important to me. And these ladies here, quality control, quality, they are quality. And that's why I have them on. And we're going to be starting with Amy, and she's going to talk about her coaching and talking about her business and how she has quality control in there.
Never quite heard it come from that perspective, Michael. I like that. Yeah, I mean, I would just say a little bit from my background is that I started out in the world of financial advising, which does have a lot of control to it, very highly regulated as far as compliance went. So then moving into the world of coaching about 5 years ago, it's interesting that you point out the quality control, because I found it was going from like the most highly regulated industry to like a very open-ended. I thought it was a little bit like the wild, wild west when I first went into coaching as far as what I brought to my clients. I think it's really important. And one of the things that I focus on with my folks is it's a shift in how they are managing their finances, because that's the work that I do. So I want them to fundamentally have clarity and understand what's coming in and what's going out. There is that piece of it. But as far as the mindset piece, I can really give them any kind of resources to use to manage their finances better. But if their mindset is not in place as far as how they're thinking about how they relate to money, they're not going to be able to make the long going shifts. It's, the shifts over time that they want to make. So I guess as far as that quality control piece, I just make sure when I talk with anyone and doing a consult that, am I the person who's uniquely suited to help them with the problems they're experiencing? Because I think a lot of times we say yes to clients because of maybe we think we can help, or the money's dangled in front of us, or we're hopeful. And I'm constantly asking that question of, am I the person who's uniquely suited to solve this problem? Or is there someone I could send them to that would be more uniquely suited and provide them better quality than I can provide? So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
I do the same thing. I think I turned 2 clients down this past week because I wasn't the right fit. And actually what I do in coaching a session is, if I know a client or if I have a guest that is maybe a fitness instructor or something like that, and someone's looking for fitness and I can't help them in that area, I would actually recommend them to that person. So that's what I do to make sure that I'm also providing value to the coaches that I have on as guests. And then, of course, for that individual who's looking for coaching. Eleni.
Yeah, I just want to stop and say, wow. Okay, can I just have a wow moment, Michael? Because I'm not surprised that I'm in the company of these ladies, and I'm not surprised that you said that, because I just want to state that very few people do that, especially when you're trying to run the business and keep it going, and make ends meet and get out of the red. Very few people are turning away clients and business. So kudos to you and the fellow guests for doing that. I love that you're setting the bar so high. So what I love to do for quality control is a lot of what Amy actually just said, which is starting with, am I going to add value? What am I bringing? Can I serve? And I do this, a lot of what I'm doing right now is author visits and going out to schools and dealing with educators and administrators and principals. And what I want to do is I explain to them that the service and the value I'm bringing, I'm not reading a book. Anybody could pick up a book and read to a child. I'm teaching you how to connect with them. I'm promoting social emotional learning. I want to create an experience that is so unique for these children that they're going to be impacted for the rest of their lives. They will remember, I met this author. She spoke truth into me. She spoke power. She spoke inspiration. I want it to be a unique, life-changing experience. That doesn't happen every day. So I take that with me if I'm on a podcast, if I'm walking into a school, if I'm working with a client. I want to bring an experience that is so unique that it can only be from Eleni.
That's great, Eleni. And when you talk about bringing an experience that's unique, I think I do that just because of how I teach. So in this country, we spend almost this was pre-COVID, $4 trillion on healthcare, and 80% of that money is by treating diseases that could be preventable through lifestyle health changes. And so I bring people a different experience, because normally they're told, don't eat fat, don't eat meat, don't eat this, and I actually eat a lot of animal products, but only high quality animal products. And so, yeah, it's about giving people a different experience and letting them, everybody, like, the biggest question I get when people find out I'm a lifestyle health coach is, are you vegan? And no, I'm absolutely not vegan. But that's the perception of what health is in this country.
Right.
And Michael, to answer your question about quality, bringing it into the business, I have learned through working so hard on my mindset in the past several years to rely on my energetics to repel the people that are not meant to work with me, and to attract the clients that are meant to work with me. And yes, I have had experiences where I have referred people to other people to work with. And that's because I also help people with digestion, so many digestion problems. Most people's digestion problems can be solved pretty easily within a few months, but there's some people that are just so severe that no, I'm not qualified to help them, but I can give them sources to get that help.
Grace, I have to acknowledge what you just said. You've learned how to repel and then attract, right? I have certain clients who I used to do a lot of mindset work with individuals. And that was one of the things that I taught them, is how to repel. And so I remember some women who would repel the wrong kind of man. We would do this whole superwoman thing. And so it's really, really powerful, our whole mindset, and how we can kind of shift things so that we are attracting the people that are going to serve us better and that we can serve as well. So love that you shared that. Great tip. So with all of our businesses, one thing that we've learned is quality control is about systems. Regardless of what the business is. So one thing that we do every quarter, we do this on a regular basis because we always want to be improving. We have to be aware of what's going on. We look at what's not working and we really face it. Like the things that maybe we don't want to, like, oh my gosh, that campaign did not work. It fell flat. People hate it. Or we're getting these complaints. Like the things that we often are naturally we don't want to deal with. That's the crap that we deal with, and we really face it. And what happens is when you make that a habit and you have it into a system, it becomes this powerful tool that can catapult your business. And so it's something that we look at all the time. I bring my whole team together and they're free to let it rip. What are you seeing? What is not working? Why is it not working? Let's ask a lot of questions. I kind of sit back and just listen. And then I ask a lot of questions, and I try as hard as I can not to inflect any type of mindset for them. I want them to be free flowing so that we can come up with better solutions. So from a business standpoint, that has been incredibly effective. One thing that we learned with Fuel the Fire, which is a newer business, only 2 years old, less than 2 years old, is in the beginning, our members were like, we don't like our groups. We're falling flat. And I'm like, oh, that's totally not what I wanted. And what we realized is that we needed to have a facilitator, a trained facilitator in each group. And now we have seen that completely change, but there's we constantly need to be refining. But that has been incredibly impactful and a thing that I had to face because my initial idea was not working. So had to eat a little bit of humble pie, but we've moved forward and it's making much more of an impact. And we're seeing our clients with their results go up. And it's because of that.
When you are a business owner, it's so much work in the beginning and it's so many blind spots that we don't necessarily know are there until we finally, try something out, whether it be a pilot. or we, start a program and we're like, okay, that didn't work out. How can I fix it? Reflection, right? Where we are going to reflect at maybe some of the difficulties that we had, and we see if we can kind of fix those or make them a little bit easier. And in the beginning of Reverend Concepts, I mean, I thought you can just start a business and people start coming to you. Where it's just like you put yourself on Google, they come flocking. They you could put your an ad somewhere, everyone is going to call you. But it's a lot of groundwork. It's a lot of hardship in the beginning, and it's that struggle. And on my whiteboard behind me, it's actually it has a start and it has like a line, and then it says finish, right? So the start is kind of like the goal, and in the line it says hard work everywhere on that line, and then the end says happiness. But then I said, you know what? This is not what happiness is. Hard work is the happiness part, because the goal, you can get to the goal and you find out that, I'm not necessarily happy. And when I started my business, I was always thinking about, I can't wait till I get 100 clients, or I can't wait till I do all these workshops and seminars, or I can't wait until I have all these episodes of coaching and session. I didn't say that. I was enjoying every moment. I was enjoying the building process. And in the building process, it's so important for us to understand that, because I think a lot of people, especially women, that's why I have 4 wonderful business owners here that are women who can talk about their experience, talk about that beginning hardship and how they overcame it. And I want to start with Grace. So I want to start with you, Grace, and then we're going to go on with how you started your business, maybe some things you wish you did different, and then how things are going now.
So I started my business because I had a master's in nutrition. I knew I didn't want to be certified. I didn't want to work in a hospital. I didn't want to work for doctors. And I worked at a company where I was given a chance to create health trainings for my colleagues. And I did. And everybody loved it. And they kept saying, I want more, I want more. And at the same time, I had been in corporate America for about 20 years at that point, and I was always an assistant. And I felt like I was wilting. I felt like I was dying inside, even when I was making almost 6 figures for literally answering the phone. And so there was just, my son actually went to Navy boot camp. He kind of like graduated early, enlisted when he was 17. He left a month after his 18th birthday. And I said, if this kid can do this, I have got to fulfill this desire I have had to get out of corporate America and use my talents and grow. So I had these classes. And so I just left kind of abruptly. And I struggled for 3 years. So it's been about 4.5 years. And it was because of my mindset. So 2 things is, one is I didn't even call myself a business owner. I didn't say I had a business. I would just say, oh, I'm just trying to do this thing, And then I also had a poverty mindset from growing up, which I had no idea how much that was causing resistance to me being successful. And it wasn't until about 1.5 years ago where I really started getting into the subconscious and doing the work and doing the energetic work. And, it just, and now I call myself a business owner, and, I do all of those things, and it's just night and day. And am I where I want to be? No, but I know I will get there. And what you said, I wasn't enjoying the journey for the first 3.5 years. I still felt as miserable as I did in corporate America. I just wasn't under the artificial lights in the cubicle. So it was a little bit better that I could go and weed my garden and stuff. But I still felt challenged and miserable. And it was really just here. It was all here. So I'm doing much better now.
Grace, that you just wrapped up so much in what you just talked about. Because that's something that I hear. I talk with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and I have for years. And the mindset is such a big part in playing small. We protect ourselves, right? Because we don't want to be ridiculed. We don't want to be shamed. All of that, all these fears that go through our heads. So the fact that you recognize it is massive. But there's a book that I'm going to recommend for anyone who's listening. But it's just an incredible book. It's by Gay Hendricks, called The Big Leap. And it talks about these ceilings that we create, these mental ceilings, right? And so we often play small because we're trying to protect ourselves from all these things that we talk about. But when you can recognize it, then you can go through that ceiling.
Yeah.
So he talks a lot about it. It's a fantastic book. It's one that I've read through more than once. So it's a good one. But I believe the question, I just want to get back and make sure I'm answering the right question. So Michael, you said, how did we start our business? Was that right? Okay.
Yes. And then the challenges that you were facing in the beginning.
Oh my gosh, challenges. You kidding? I can go on for days with that. But this business that I created, I'm just going to talk about that because that's what I'm doing right now. When I started with a business partner, and I was really excited because I started this during the pandemic. And this is one thing from owning businesses for so many years, is that when you've owned a business for a long time, you get punched in the gut, you get knocked out at the knees often. It's just part of it, right? And then you just build up this resilience muscle. But part of that, those experiences have taught me to look for opportunities. So when the pandemic hit, our business that was bringing in the majority of our funding is an event business, and we service Silicon Valley. That dried up overnight. And all of a sudden we're like, okay, how are we going to pay our bills? This is a problem. And I thought about, okay, I'm not the only one who's having this who's going through this, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are scared to death. Luckily, I've been through it, so I know how to adjust pretty quickly. And that's why we started Fuel the Fire. And so I looked for the opportunity, but I jumped in really quick, right? Because we had a quick need. So when we started, I had this business partner who I did not know very well. So one thing that I would say for I do think that partnerships can be incredibly beneficial. However, make sure you know the person well. Make sure, I would also say, have maybe a project that you work on first before you go full blown into a deeper partnership. And not that there's anything wrong with her, it's just that we're both we're both entrepreneurs, and we have ways that we want to do things, right? And so she had her way, I had my way. And it was clear to me fairly quickly that it was not going to be the best situation for both of us. So we had to, figure that out. And I ended up buying her out. But with that said, I learned about that, but it is really beneficial to have a who for your what. What I mean by that is, we know what our strengths are, but we also should know what our weaknesses are, and to find someone who can help us with that. So instead of maybe having a partnership, maybe you have a collaboration, right? Something like that. So that was an area that a big learning lesson in the beginning of my business.
I love that. So much of this is resonating with me. So I was an actress and a model for over 2 decades here in New York City. And during the height of COVID, my industry was annihilated overnight. And Michael knows some of this, but just to fill in the rest of you, I have 2 boys. I'm a single mom. And I was like, holy crap, how am I going to put food on the table? Like, no joke. So very stressful time. And prior to COVID, I had published my children's book, but COVID actually delayed the book, delayed the publishing, actually increased the price of the book, the paper, when it shipped, when it was able to be published, when it actually came out. Everything in the world obviously was impacted by COVID. But the reason I'm sharing this is because while I was home suffering, like many of us, I thought to myself, this could be happening for me, not to me. And let me take this opportunity. So many of us busy moms, busy, entrepreneurs, because as an actress and a model, I was self-employed. I've been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades, not in publishing, but it's still entrepreneurial, right? So I was thinking, we always say to ourselves, oh, one day I'll do this, one day I'll start this, one day I'll explore that. And I thought to myself, holy shit, today's the day. Like, I get to do this. Like, there's nothing happening in the world right now. I have no commitment, no job, no paycheck. I get to play. I get to have fun. I get to take things for a test drive. That's what I call it. Take it for a test drive. So what I did was I had people coming to me, you should try this, you should, try that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to dabble in this. Let me try that. So the first thing I thought of was, I love eyelashes. I was getting extension lashes, and I was like, oh, I'm going to become a lash technician. Let me try this. And I had my niece come over, and I'm trying to put the lashes on, and I was like, okay, I really suck at this. This is not happening. Then I was like, my aunt called me, and she's the co-chair of the literacy department at Touro University. She's like, they need teachers. You should try this. And I was like, maybe I'll try that. So I was literally dabbling in so many different things. I did get certified during COVID. I became a certified teacher. And while I was in the classroom, I did feel a calling to go, into the classroom and to give back and to serve, because I've always felt that it's important to find something that will give me purpose. So I definitely found purpose in that. So while I'm in the classroom, you guys, teaching, my book literally published and launched. So I got to go into the classroom now as a substitute teacher in the elementary schools and share Picky Patrick and share my book and share my story. And I literally, as I got catapulted into teaching, I literally got catapulted into, publishing and my entrepreneurial journey as an author. So it was like, wow, like just mind blowing, because it all came at once. And I was like, check this out. Like during the height of COVID, this wasn't really planned, but I embraced the moment. I embraced that time of struggle and uncertainty to say, what can I do? What's going to give me meaning? What's going to give me purpose? The book was supposed to come out. The book's not here. Oh yeah, the book is here. So it's just like constantly shifting and pivoting. And to answer your question, Michael, there were so many challenges starting the business, specifically getting systems into place, brand awareness, because nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew me as an author. Nobody knew about my book, and it's my first book. Finding mentors. I love what Midori said, because choosing the right people who to partner with. Oh my gosh, so many valuable lessons in that. And I love what you said, because I'm actually doing it myself. There's someone I'm thinking about partnering with, and I was like, no, you know what? Let's try this little project together. Let's see how we do. Let's see if we play nice. Let's see if we complement each other as entrepreneurs. Let's see if our missions and our visions are aligned. I think that's so important.
I love that so much. Thanks for sharing that, Eleni. I think one of the biggest things I pulled out of you sharing that was, oh, she was just willing to, and maybe you were forced into this situation a little bit with
a little bit of both,
right? But like you were willing to try things. So this is the way I think it was, like you were willing to fail. You weren't only doing the things that you knew. Like if you've been a model and actress for 20 years, you kind of like knew, I've built this muscle. I'm good at this. I know what to go in and do, right? Maybe you get the shot or not, but you have that confidence about that. But you were willing to be messy and you're willing to fail. I cannot even imagine in a million years trying to put eyelashes on someone. That would not be something. I would have said fail before.
They were falling off. Trust me. It's the reason I'm not doing that.
But that is so amazing. And I think a lot of times we maybe resist doing things in our lives because of a concern that we have around failing, or we have a concern around, I don't know, like looking bad or not being the best at something or trying to have it figured out in a way. And I think for me, that was some of the challenges from, I'll say with my financial coaching business, shifting from being an advisor to being a coach. The challenge for me was feeling like, well, I already have this thing going. Like I've been doing this for 4 years. I've started to build up clients. I've got trails coming in. There's like a very specific process to it. I have a broker dealer I like it's all very, I don't know, that not to make it too simplified, but almost like paint by number, right? Like it was just like a very clear path for me. And yet what I was experiencing and felt for months on end was I'm not really serving people at the highest level I know I can serve them. So I have clients coming in and saying, yeah, this is great. I'm in this IRA or this life insurance policy or this rollover from an old job. But what they really needed help with was building habits in their day-to-day finances. so that they could connect what they're doing with their personal and business finances in the day-to-day with their longer term goals. And I felt like, why aren't people doing that? Like that should be a role, that should be a job. I at the time did not know financial coach was a thing. So I was in this exploration of like what I didn't know. But I think the biggest piece for me when I realized it was a thing was, am I willing to let go of what I know? Because I wasn't really forced into it. Like you were sharing, Eleni, I was like, oh, I could keep doing this and it will keep building. And from a financial point of view, this is the safe path versus going into a path where it's like, well, what am I going to call this business? And how am I going to set up these systems like Midori is talking about it? How am I going to serve people? And how am I going to find clients and all of that? That was a scary leap. It made me feel very sick to my stomach. I now know if I feel sick to my stomach, I'm probably onto something. But just real quick, one of the challenges was feeling like I had to do everything, for my business. That, oh, well, people are doing a blog, so I should do a blog. And people have, I don't know. I just tried to think of things like I'm serving people with one session, but I could also serve them for 6 months. Oh, Grace, you only want like a 2-hour call, but Midori, you want a year-long program. Like I was doing all the things. I have to be on every social media platform, everything like that. And I'll just share for your listeners, Michael, the one thing that really made a difference for me was coaching I got, I don't know, halfway through, like a couple of years ago, is what do I really love to do? And what I've always really loved to do is talk. You can probably tell that. So I figured I got into like a speaking group. I got skilled at writing talks that would make a difference. And then I started to be on podcasts. And then I started to give during COVID, like on a lot of webinars and online talks and visiting masterminds and things like that. And just talking to women about money was so much more fun than what I was trying to do because I thought I should as a business owner. And that led to these type of relationships that have built my business organically. So I just encourage people, like, you don't have to do all the things. If you're a great writer and you love to write, then great, do that. But I just, once I figured out, oh, there's so many ways that I can talk. How do I build my business through talking? And that's made a difference.
When I started to be a writer, when I started with a blog, 2019, started the business in 2018. And 2018 was kind of like the building up of Revenue Concepts. It's like, okay, well, how do you even do this? Because no one in my family has done this before. I didn't have any connections to business owners that can help me. And it was very challenging because I was basically learning from scratch. And 2019, my first blog came out and I was so nervous. I was like, oh my goodness, people are going to critique me. They're going to say something. I have all these spelling errors. And I mean, I had quite a bit of spelling errors in that first blog. Even Grammarly couldn't help me. So that's a problem.
Wow.
So going on, I started to get more confident. And I found kind of like a mindset hack, I guess you can say. I learned how I operate. And you are completely right. When you need a team, I'm really good at finding team members for me. So when I need a social media manager, I go out and I hire one. I'm looking for an executive assistant right now, and there's always a new one. So I'm in that process. I'll interview 13 people, and I'll pick the best one, and then I'll have backups. So that's the way I do it. But I found a team to help me because I love writing. I love doing podcasts. I like doing videos, and I like working with people as a coach. So I do what I love, and I don't really necessarily love the video editing part, but I'm really good at it. So I will do it because it's very artistic, I found, because when you are editing a video, it's kind of like magic. It's similar to photography where you take a photo and that photo can mean something to you where someone else might look at it. It's similar to art in a gallery. You look at art and you're like, what does this mean to me? Right now, we're in a magical time, 2023, January. In January, many people are going to be coming up with this idea of, I have a New Year's resolution and I want to really make a difference in my life. So they're going to be giving themselves goals. They're going to be giving themselves, these ideas, maybe even starting a business. And I know many women right now are getting into that mindset of, I'm going to start a business, but they have a lot of fears. They have a lot of fears of a recession, of high inflation. Can they do it? Where all those fears are acting as weights. And I kind of want to talk about, like, going to person, if you had to talk to that person who is ready to start a business, who's ready to put themselves out there, what would you say to them? And I'm going to start with Eleni.
I love that you're asking this question because it's advice I wish I had, right, when I was starting out. And that's what we're trying to offer your listeners. The first thing I would say is trust that you have everything you need to see it through. Maybe not to execute it perfectly, but trust that voice, that intuition, that you're going to be able to like follow it and make it thrive. And by that I mean that's when we're fulfilling our purpose, right? We're not talking about success the way that it's measured by most people in society. I'm talking about listen to your gut, get quiet, tune out all the negativity, drown out that imposter syndrome, because we all have it, and really hone in on that, because that's going to serve you well. And that, I think, for me, was more important than even the systems and the website and the social media and all the noise that bogs us down. Because I wish someone could have said to me, people were saying to me, a book, really? Are people even buying books nowadays? Like, you're going to go teach during COVID? Are you even allowed in the school? Like, why would you do that now? It's the worst time to do this. Like, I could hear, and people that have good intentions, I hear them all in my head right now. So the first thing I want you to do is drown them out. Be careful who you bring in your corner. Be very selective. There's so much power in proximity. And if you don't have those people in your corner, you can find them. Tune in to Michael, and listen to his podcast and all these other amazing women who are on here with me. So I detoxed from news. I detoxed from family members. I did digital detox. I had my kids at one point say, Mom, you need to turn on the television. Do you even know what's going on in the world? And I was like, listen, there's a reason I'm doing all of this. And I did it to get my certifications done. I got 3 certifications done during COVID. And then I realized it was serving me well. And then I just kept maintaining that, because I realized that I was being more effective and that I was able to give more and perform better when I was tuning out, whether it's a radio program or someone who doesn't believe in you, or other negative, sometimes they're your own partners or family members. You need to tune it all out and know and trust in yourself, and all you need is within you. I promise you.
I love how you said to tune out family members. That's so hit home for me, because when I decided to leave corporate America and start my own business, my mother about fainted. And I remember she said to me, so are you unemployed yet? And I said, it's called self-employment, Mom.
Yeah,
and
not unemployment.
Yes, it wasn't unemployment. And I had to drown her out, because there was this desire within me. I knew I was meant for more than answering the phone and creating documents and making travel arrangements for other people. And yes, you have to trust in yourself, and you have to believe in yourself. And there's going to be so many people who love you, who are going to be negative, but it's only because they're afraid. They're afraid for you. They know you can do it, but they're also, it's something just like Michael said, no one in my family had run a business either. It was brand new. And some advice that I would give to women starting out their own business would be produce to publish, not for perfection. So I know, Michael, you mentioned earlier that you are very, you're very particular about the content you put out, but you've also been doing it for 4 or 5 years. And I think when people start out, which was myself too, you think you have to have a perfect post and you have to have likes and you have to have comments, but I can't tell you how many times I, email my list and I put a post out and there's no comments, there's no likes, but I see people out in my community and they talk to me about what I produced. And if I waited for it to be perfect, I would have never done anything. I'd still be answering the phone as an assistant. So, and also one more thing is, which I had to learn too, is keep going. So whether you succeed, whether you fail, you have to keep going. And that was something that was, I had to learn. So right away I was successful, but I didn't really know why. Clients just came to me and I was like, I have no clue what I did. So I kind of froze, I would work with them and then I froze. I would put out a program, nobody would buy it. It would be a failure. I would freeze. And so I've learned, especially this year, just keep going. Keep, stringing those pearls.
Can I just add, I just want to say, Grace, you can have your mom call my mom and they can commiserate together.
And I can add to that.
I taught a class. I just wanted to add that I launched this incredible course that only one person enrolled for, and it was supposed to be weekend long. I spent so much quality time with this gentleman. He's my new best friend. I did the course exactly as was intended the entire weekend to one person. I love what you said. Keep going.
Yep. The resilience, right? We build up that muscle as entrepreneurs. It's kind of like you have to, it's an entrepreneur mindset. It's part of it. You're going to get knocked out. I'm surprised I have any teeth left from all the times I've been knocked out. And then you were talking about both Eleni and Grace. You're talking about, the people that are around you, the people who've raised you, the people who love you, but are more risk averse. My dad was a teacher and he grew up during the Depression. And so he thinks I'm absolutely out of my mind, but I've been doing this for so long. And so I think he just kind of learned to just let me go. But it's all about a mindset, right? It's such the foundation of it. Yes, it is the mindset. And you have to be really practical when you're starting a business because it can cost you a shit ton of money and time. So when we're starting a business, we're really excited, right? It's in a field usually that lights us up, that we may be really good at. We may have been in our corporate job and we are excellent at teaching or writing or numbers or whatever it is. But you got to remove yourself from that and you have to test the shit out of it. You need to go talk to the people who are not your friends and family, who don't give a crap about you, and go test your concept over and over and over and look at it objectively. Don't make sure have a system in place. So when you're going out and you're asking these questions and you're getting feedback, you can look at it from a standpoint of openness and really not make sure that you're not imposing your ideas into the way that you're interpreting the answers. That's the critical first step. I see so many people start business and like, I know it's going to be great because it's changed my life. Okay, so it changed your life, but it might not change someone else's, or they may not care, right? So that's kind of the first step. Test the crap out of it. Test as much as you can and test with people who don't know you. Number two, then you need to have a comprehensive system in place. Because what I don't remember who mentioned it. I think it was you, Amy, where you came out and you're like, I felt like I needed to be on every platform and I needed to do everything. I need to have, the week-long program and I need to have the year-long program, all this stuff, and we get overwhelmed. And then we create a lot of mess. So have a system in place that is step by step so that you're not finding yourself overwhelmed and that you're going in a systematic way so that when you launch your marketing campaign, it is based on a consistent, clear, well thought out message that goes throughout everything else. Your branding is in place, your message, your tagline, that is all comprehensive and you're not jumping ahead, right? And then also you get to, Amy, going back to you talked about, you realized, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be doing all these different things. I'm really good at talking. That's called your zone of genius. What are you really good at? And what do you love to do? What makes your heart sing, right? And Michael, you talked about this too. Oh, awesome. Figure that out and then go magnify that with what you do. So that's what I would say to someone who's starting.
I love that. I feel like it's like a combination of the two here, right? Like be willing to be messy. And then as you're going forward, I am a practical person. So one of the things I'm going to say is know your numbers. To your point, Midori, is like go out and test things, but also know like, I will usually talk about it with my clients when they're talking about starting a business or building their business. How much money are you willing to put from your personal pot into the business? And maybe don't just be throwing it in, but have a plan for that so that you have the sense of it's an investment. This is what, it's part of the bigger financial picture. But someone said to me soon into my business when I was feeling like, well, maybe this isn't going to work out. Maybe this isn't the best path for me. Maybe I should go back to advising, or I'm not getting the clients I want to get or the traction. A coach asked me, well, how long are you willing to do this and not have the results that you feel like you should be having or that you think you should be having? And it was a great question because I sat with it and I was like, oh, how long am I willing to do this? Right. And of course, the answer was as long as I have to, because I love what I do. And then this is the impact. Now, that may not be everyone's answer, but for me, it was really motivating to get. I could stop looking at it through the lens of, well, if I don't make this and I don't have this success, or if it doesn't look this way, that I'm going to do this for as long as it takes, because this is what, this is the impact I feel like the contribution I'm here to make on the planet. Right. Mm-hmm. And a book that really helped me, I love Big Leap, Zone of Genius, huge. But I also really enjoyed reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and helped me a lot with that because he talked about like the identity of X person, right? Of this, like, what are the habits of someone who has this identity? And it helped me to really look through for myself and with my clients with challenges, like, what are the habits that someone that I want to model myself after, especially listening to you, Midori, and all these systems you have in place, the way you're looking at things and trying them out and all that. Like, I mean, it has me think a little bit like, oh, well, where are some of the ways I could tighten up in my business? Like, that's a particular identity. What are the habits that you have in place because of having that identity? Right. So that book really helps me to think through the lens of like, what do we shift first? It isn't always the practical steps. It's what are the actions that someone who has X identity, whether it be an athlete or a successful business owner, or a successful model or something like that. What are those habits that they have as part of their day-to-day? What identity do I want, and what habits do I need to take on for that?
And you said some really great things there. One being your coach gave you like a question that was really empowering. I'm going to talk on that in a second. And then the second is just looking at the whole aspect of looking at the group and learning from the group, right? So it's kind of like a mastermind group, this coaching session, because we have 5 coaches talking about different experiences and giving their take per se, right? And giving their input, because we're not really family with anyone. But at the same time, we can treat each other like family. We can want people to be successful. I want to see every single one of you succeed. So, for me, it's like, if I can help you, let me know how I can help you. And that is what I want, because I know my mission in life and the whole idea behind Revenue Concepts. I want to help 2 billion people. I can't do it by myself. I already know I can't do it by myself. That's a lot of people. And I know I can create a ripple effect. How do I create the ripple effect? And I did that with the podcast. And I still do it with the podcast, because when I started the podcast, I said, I'm only going to go up to episode 100. Who listens to episodes past 100? Because I listen to a podcast, listen to the first 70 episodes or something like that. And I go, I think I got a good understanding of what the podcast is. So then I was just thinking, well, how can I make my podcast a little bit different? And then make it so someone would want to listen to past to episode 100, 200, 300. And so that's why I have different coaches on. We talk about different topics. You can listen to the same type of coach, like, for example, a mindset coach. So I know Midori does a lot of mindset work, and we can listen to her, and then I can have another mindset coach on, and it's a totally different conversation. And that is what I want to bring. I want to bring different conversations. And I know when we bring in all these minds, we get a different take, we get a different outlook. And one of the greatest questions I was ever asked from one of my mentors, he said, how much are you worth? And I was I did not know the answer. I
Ooh,
was like, how much am I worth? I'm thinking in
I
my head,
love that.
what can I be worth? And I said to him, I'm priceless. And he's like, no, that's not what I want. He's like, he wants a number. He wants a financial number. And so I was just
Wow.
thinking in my head, and I was like, I don't know, because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm worth $1 million, because I know a lot of women that I've coached. I was like, how much are you worth? I'm worth $1 million. Okay. Well, tell me why you're worth $1 million. And I'm not saying that you're not worth $1 million. Just explain to me your value. And it was something that I had to work with my business coach on, because I didn't know my value. And my value wasn't $1 million when I first started off. I started coaching. I was charging like $25 to $33 an hour. Now we're in the 100 mark right now. It's just because we have grown so much. But in the beginning, I had a very difficult time understanding my value. And I thought value was something that, oh, this is what is my perceived value. I thought they see my car, they see my house, they see my stature. This is who I am. And I think that stops a lot of people from really driving in and starting a business and making changes in their life, because they perceive their value as lower, or they perceive their value as actually too high. That's something so unattainable. And the subconscious mind does not like that, because if it's so unattainable, the subconscious mind is going to shut you down before you can take action, because it's scary. And the scary part too is a lot of energy. It's going to take a lot of energy for change to happen. So what I kind of want is to understand your value, and to kind of ask you that same question my mentor asked me: what is your value? And you can break it down any which way you want. And we're going to start with Midori.
Gosh, okay. So value, I don't know that I think of a dollar value. What I think of is the value that I bring to a client, right? When they work with me, by the end, if it's a 6-month contract, what are they going to gain at the end? And from working one-on-one with so many different people over the years, what I've seen that lights me up is when I can help them see their value. So not necessarily a dollar amount. And I'll just give an example. I've been working with this one woman who is a professor at Washington University. She has a PhD. When she first started working with me, she said, Midori, I've been a professor for so long. I'm not an entrepreneur. She was discounting that she has a PhD. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me right now? You have a PhD. People work so hard and they dream of that. I'm like, we are absolutely going to optimize that and leverage the crap out of it. And we did. And now she's thriving, but she had to stop that mindset. And the reason why she thought she didn't think much of it is because everyone around her had a PhD. It was not a big deal, right? Whereas that's not in my world. Not everyone around me has a PhD, and I know the value of it. And so we focused in on that. And so that's what I would say when we talk about value, because I feel like my value increases quite a bit when I can help others see theirs, because often they don't see it themselves. So that's what I would say.
That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah. And then it isn't, it's not quantifiable, because she goes on the rest of her life and what she creates. I mean, it's kind of impossible, Michael. I see what you're trying to do over there, but I think about it, I had a coach who asked me about not the same exact question, but essentially like around pricing, right? And I was saying, okay, well, I work in this 3-month, coaching program. I particularly like to work with people who do well financially, but they have a sense that they don't have a handle on where their money's going. And they have like a fear, a concern that they're going to be in the future and look back and say, where did all that money go? Right. And that feels that way month to month or year to year for them. Right. And so when I was looking at what is the value that I provide in those 3 months of creating clarity, creating confidence, peace of mind, systems, et cetera. And I particularly like to work with people who have debt, who again, may be making 6 figures plus, sometimes much more than that. And yet they're still on this hamster wheel of debt. It's a habit that they haven't broken for themselves. So there is that over 3 months. Sometimes people will pay off $25,000 worth of debt. Well, there you go. Very tangible example. But then I can look and say, but if you broke that habit of carrying that debt, then where does that money get invested in? whether it is, to Midori's point, of having them get clear about like maybe a business that they would want to start, or maybe an impact they want to have in their community or on their family. Or I'll have people who are debating now in Maryland to run for government, to join Wes Moore's team as our new governor here, which is very exciting because they never would have thought of that if they continued to be stuck in the muck of the lack of clarity and chaos around their finances. So those are just some of the kind of fun things that I think pop out when you work with people at shifting their mindset and also getting systems in place that work for them.
Wow, so I'm in big trouble because when you ask what is your value, what is my worth, I will never ever respond in numbers. And maybe this is the big aha moment for me, and maybe I need to learn from all of you. But it's just not how I quantify things. And when I think of value, I always think of what am I bringing to my schools? What am I bringing to the children? What am I bringing to the clients? What value am I adding to the world? The one thing I will say that I've gotten so much more selective with is understanding, okay, knowing there's so many clients, right? Like, okay, you think I have a children's book. Who are my clients? Any parent, any child, any elementary school. Not true. My ideal client, understanding what value I can bring to the ideal client, are the ones who value education, connection, connecting organically with children, parents who want to instill value in their children. Not everybody wants to do that. There's plenty of people who've had kids. There's a lot of parents who aren't even reading to their children. So my books, my mission, my goal, the reason I started my company is to build on that. So when people say to me, oh, who is the book for? It's not for any child. It's not for any school. It's not for any parent. What I've recognized is I want to go to the schools that value the fact that I want to connect with the children, that I want to read the book to them. Not the schools that say to me, why don't you upload it and send me a YouTube link? I don't want to do that. Like, our kids are having too much of that. I need to talk to the parents and the schools that value the connection, the ones that want to turn off the devices. That's who I want to speak to. That's who I can add value to. I literally took 2 airplanes, flew on my dime, and drove over 100 miles in one day on the west coast of Montana in the prairies to go to those schools. That's how far I'm willing to go. So I feel like I know where my value is, and I will go where they value me.
That's great, Eleni, where you're looking where people value you, because I feel exactly the same, because not everybody values my advice. I get negative comments quite often. I sold a $26 course last week, and people are like, are you kidding? Like, you're charging for this? And, I know that is because she feels limited in herself. And it's somebody I don't know. So, those keyboard warriors. But I can't put a price on it either. Reason being is I view myself as a steward of the earth. So every person that I help make lifestyle health changes is going back to that quality. They're going to care about the quality of their food, the quality of sleep. And every household that I make an impact, that is making a positive impact on every species on this earth. And it makes a positive impact for the entire planet. So what I aim to do is reach, you wanted to do 2 billion, you will reach 2 billion people, Michael. My goal is to have an impact on every single American household, and it doesn't have to be in the same way. So that class I was talking about was how to bake an apple pie, but it was from scratch, rolling out the dough, getting your own apples, slicing them up, doing it how people did it hundreds of years ago, bringing the traditional values back to eating and feasting. And so I have courses that are as low as $8, but I also, for some of my private clients, depending on them, what they want, they can pay me thousands of dollars. And, then I have, corporate clients who, I could get tens of thousands of dollars to help their employees. So yeah, I do think I'm invaluable. I think the information I have is invaluable. However, interesting enough, it's not my own idea. It's just taking how people lived hundreds of years ago back to the beginning of humans and reteaching it, because a lot of countries still have traditional wisdom, but we're a melting pot here. And when people immigrate here, they tend to leave the old country behind and take on what Americans do, instead of bringing their traditional practices and ways of life to their life here.
And I actually follow you on LinkedIn. So I see the work that you're putting out and all the content, all your posts. I read them all, and I can see the value in that. And it's so important that the value is not by how many likes we get, how many people follow us, people sharing or retweeting, like depending on what social platform you're on. It's about, how do you feel about what you just put out there? Do you feel like it's going to make a difference? Because, looking at what Eleni's doing, right? She, on her own dime, flying, driving, making a difference, right? For me, that value is there. And all the content that I put out is free. The podcast, you can go on any podcast station, check it out. You can go on YouTube, watch the motivational videos. We're on season 6 now, and we're just always putting out more content, because not everyone is going to be in a position where they can get the luxury of coaching. It is an investment, but it's a good investment, because just how many people will invest to go in college and then flunk out, they have an opportunity to find all their blind spots with a coach. And it's so important that they work with someone who is not just looking at them, but is looking within them. And they're able to see, okay, well, I see what's going on. Let's start to make some adjustments. And it's not that we're trying to change people. It's just that we're seeing that you are so much more than what you're giving. And we all have value, right? And it doesn't have to be monetary. It's just that my mentor at the time, he really wanted, he was the executive, like he was one of the top executives at GM or something like that. So he was a head honcho guy making millions of dollars a year. And so he wanted a number from me, and I didn't have one at the time. And to this day, I have how much I charge, but the value that I bring to the world is, it.
How can you put a number? How can you?
You cannot.
I'm sorry. I feel like, how can you put a number to that? And I'm asking myself as I'm listening to you, and I'm so sorry I'm interjecting. I'm curious if this was a male panel. I'm not with you excluded right now, Michael. The guests are all female. I wonder if it were men. I didn't hear any of us put a number value. And I really believe that if we were men, that it would be, the responses would have been totally different.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we have servants' hearts, is what I'm trying to say.
What I'm going to say is that the next panel is all men. So we will find out probably in a couple of months.
Okay.
So
I'm going to listen and tune in. Yeah, I'm curious.
That's going to be fun to see the difference.
Yes. Yeah. So there's actually a flow to how I set up the group sessions. So the ladies are leading off, and then we're going to have a all men panel, and then we're going to have a co-ed panel. And we're just going to kind of go off that. And that's kind of like how I have it planned for the year already. And then from there, we might make some adjustments, add different mindsets, things like that. And then any previous guest can be on a group. And I want you to understand that just because you're in group 1 doesn't mean you can't be in group 7 or things like that. You can always come back to be in more groups. This is, as long as you were on the podcast at least once as a guest, then you have the ability to come on in a group environment for the podcast. If you have never been on the podcast as a guest, you can never be in a group. That's how exclusive this is. So it's very important that people understand, that are listening to this, that are on LinkedIn, probably because that's where I get a lot of people who don't go to my website and don't do the podcast forums. And they just like, hey, what do I need to do to join the podcast? Well, first of all, you need to fill out this form. And then if they ask for the group session, first of all, you need to be on as a regular guest. I need to interview you and make sure you have a good mindset and that the work you do is going to be of value, because that is what I'm looking for. What is your value? And it's not so much how much you're worth, how much you can change the world, but how much you can see in the world. Because anyone can say, oh, I want to, change my life. I want to change my circumstances. A lot of people do that. I'm a victim of that too. In the beginning, I look at how can I change my life? How much money do I need in my bank account? How big of a house do I need? How many cars do I need? Versus, let me look at this individual. How can I change their life? Putting others before. And that was something I had to learn, because that really gives me that intrinsic value. And I mean, I did it as a teacher, I did it as a coach, but it wasn't clear to me until 2000. I think I met him in 2017, 2018, when he asked me that question. I didn't know what my value was. I didn't know what value I was bringing to the world. And I think that stops a lot of people from making changes in their life because they don't understand their value.
What did you answer? What was your answer?
I told him that. I told him I'm priceless. And I told him like 3 times, and that's like, he's like, I want a number. And I'm like, I'm priceless. I couldn't put a number on. And I finally met with my business coach, and I was speaking with her, and she was like, okay, I see where he was going. So she was able to offer me some insight on that. And then we were able to come up with a number, and it was quite low. It was like, I think the number we came up was like 80,000 or something like that. So it was quite low. And we were looking just at how, like, the beginning of the business, right? How much value can we create? How much value can we bring? And now it's a lot more than that because of the podcast, of all the blogs. We have 200 blogs out, over 200 episodes of the podcast. And so people can go check that out. People can binge watch this or binge read all the blogs. And then I just have my first book being published now. So there's so much content that I'm bringing for people to find value in. And just how we all have books that we can say, this book changed my life, we can do that too, right? For me, a book that changed my life was Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. When I read that book, I was like, yes, this makes sense to me, because my whole mission is that Revan Concepts is just never turn backwards. How can we turn limiting beliefs around? And it's so important. And right now, I kind of want to go switch it up a little bit. I want to kind of give you all the hosting position. So I want to start with Amy, and I want you to ask any questions that you might have heard during our discussion today. If you have any input or something like that, things you wanted to interject into the audience ears for them to understand or them to take away from this, and then we can kind of go along with there.
Well, I'm a little bit hooked by the last thing that you said, because what's running through in my head is, maybe this relates to a couple of questions you asked earlier, Michael. As far as women considering starting businesses right now, I think what this connected with me is this idea of like having belief in your value. Right. And I'm not sure if this is necessarily answering your question, but to me, it's like, I just really want to highlight on that, because I think that's what Grace and Eleni were saying, as far as being able to shut out what people were saying to them, like questioning, who are you to think you have this? I don't know. It's that really famous quote as far as like, who am I not to? Right. I don't know who says it or exactly how it goes, but you all know what I'm saying. But it's that piece around, like, I think that is the biggest hurdle, is trusting in the value that you have to bring, no matter what the business is that you want to start. Even Midori, to your point of like testing it out all over the place. Absolutely. But even before you're willing to do that, it's building that belief, building that trust in yourself that you do have that value to bring, because I think most people will talk themselves out of it. There might be the few that are like, I got this, let me go for it, right? And throw their hat over the fence. But I think there's a lot of people listening to your podcast who are looking for that hope, for that inspiration. And to Eleni's point earlier, it is within themselves, right? So what rooms do you need to put yourself in? What podcasts do you need to listen to? Who do you need to be around? Who are your mentors that will say, get to the heart of what that value is and be willing to take a risk to put that out there and to be messy putting it out there? I think that's the biggest piece of it. Yeah. So I'll see if other people want to interject something in, but that's what really hit home for me as far as people who may be listening and thinking, well, am I at a point to do this? If our value is immeasurable, then what you have to give has never been given before, because there is no you. Even if it's a similar concept, there is no you to give that concept out in the world. So if you have that light and that spark in you, I would say to go for it.
And you made a great point there where we look at our value in a certain way, right? So we can put like we can put a number on it. We can put something that is not a number, right? We're priceless. And I like asking vague questions. If you know the podcast, it's just my style. Be as vague as possible and hope people understand. And it's working out so far. But the question was almost like a trick question, because it's like we can like we can have our feelings, and it's like, well, wait, like, what is my worth? What is my value? It's so personal, because what I value might not be what you value, or what you think as value might not be, what someone else's value. So let's use traditional, for example. A traditional wife stays at home, takes care of the kids, where maybe someone who goes off and works as an entrepreneur might see that lady as lazy, right? So she doesn't see the value of her status of being a stay-at-home wife, taking care of the kids, as valuable. But let me tell you, being a stay-at-home wife, taking care of the kids, is a job, and it is valuable, because I have a little one and I understand that. But for someone who is looking at you just on the outside, it's kind of like we look at, oh, this person is no good, or like we look at the people who are going to be toxic, people who are going to light us up. And so someone looks at your life and they say, oh, you're doing that. I think they have their own insecurities. Maybe they want a family and they don't have it. So they're going to project their negativity back to you and saying, you know what, that's not valuable.
Can I chime in here? So, as a mother of two teenage boys, when they were growing up, I said no to work so that I could stay home and be with them and spend time with them and show up at school and go and chaperone trips and bake cookies and play at the park and do those things. For anyone who's a parent who's thinking about starting a business, number one, know your priorities, because, maybe I'll get slack for this, but I don't care. Your children should always come first. I know you have a young child, Michael. You're never going to get this time back. I promise you. My boys are teenagers now, and I'm just like, I miss when they were little and I could cuddle them and read to them and snuggle them and all that good stuff. But you know what? I'm glad that when I had the opportunity, I said no to work. I said no to travel. I had the financial ability to do that, of course. I would never judge someone, and I'm not trying to judge. I'm just saying, value, right? We're talking so much about value. Know what you value. I value being a mother before everything. You can't put a price on that. What you're giving your son, you can't put a price on that. I could sit there and say, okay, I'm going to stay home and raise my kids. Let me figure out what it would cost to get a babysitter. How much are you paying that babysitter, right? You guys want to talk about numbers and put a number on it? We can do that math. We could all figure that out. In New York City, minimum $25, $30 an hour. So let's say you're doing $30 an hour. How many hours a day is she coming? How many hours a week, right? Figure out what that number is. Multiply what it comes out, what it turns out to be in the year. That's what you should be paying yourself minimum. That's what you're worth, bare minimum. And, I guess what I'm trying to share is, as, talking to fellow entrepreneurs who want to start a business, never sell yourself short and never let go of your value, because you don't want to look back and have regret. And, if you value, your children and being a mother, then figure out a way to do it so that you're not going to be gone. My kids play football, and I don't know why Tom Brady is screaming out to me right now, because here's a guy who's a legend, okay, and has, children, and went into retirement. I don't know if the ladies know, but he went into retirement, came out of retirement, went back into the game. Now, I'm not trying to knock him. I'm just saying, there's a time and a season for everything. And, you don't want the business to take the place of the things that you can't put a price tag on, like your family, your health, your children. That should always take precedence, because you'll never get that back. And I'm realizing that now every day, you guys. I'm breathing it as an entrepreneur. I have had days where my kids are like, are you going to get off the computer? Are you going to eat? Are you coming out? Are you like, I'm checked out, and I need to stop and be like, I need to reevaluate. There's days where my boyfriend's like, how many hours are you going to put in? Like, what is the typical day like? There are no typical days. So where do you draw the line? And that's when I sit back and reevaluate. And I ask myself, is this serving me? Is it sucking me? And when I feel like I'm getting sucked dry, I'm like, I'm not serving. I'm like, I can't show up and give your audience value because I'm exhausted. And what I will say is, when the business is thriving, the house might get dirty. So what? Let it go. Get over it. If the weather's nice, go out and take a walk with your kids and get some fresh air and live your life. Because guess what? Tomorrow it will all still be there.
Perfect. Did you want to say on that, Grace?
Well, not to be a downer, Eleni, but wait till they leave. It puts such a hole in your heart. And, I read like a few years ago, it was something like the job of the parent is to eventually parent yourself out of a job. And so when you do that, you're like, oh my gosh, like they're going out into the world and this is awesome. And they're just doing their thing. But it leaves like you lost your job, right? Now your relationship is going to change. You're always going to have that relationship, but they don't need you in the same way. So it kind of leaves a hole in your heart, and then you have to refill it. So not to be a downer about your kids.
Oh, I know that heartbreak is coming.
But yes, there's an 11-year difference between my two children, and I feel so guilty because I wasn't able to be as present with my son as I am with my daughter. So it's hard, but it's wonderful and it's great. And Michael, I just wanted to add one other thing. You had asked a question earlier. I think I was the first one to answer. It was about challenges when we started, but you had also said, what was the question? You asked, what would we do differently? And that question I've actually thought about a lot this past summer, because I attained a goal that I had been working on for years. And when I finally attained it, it was becoming part of a particular mastermind. When I finally attained it, I was like, you know what? Why didn't I do this then? Why didn't I do this time? And I realized if I had done it years prior, my mindset was so just not where it needed to be. I wouldn't have gotten out of it what I needed. So my answer now to that question is always going to be, I wish I didn't do anything differently, because I wasn't available. I wasn't ready for the information. I wasn't ready to use it. And, to be in a position to really take it and, find value in it and, apply it in my life. Mm-hmm. So just wanted to add
it's all about the journey. That's what you're sharing. And it's huge, right? It's our journey. We all start somewhere and then we end up somewhere else. But as long as we're constantly improving ourselves, like you've been talking about, you went from working in corporate, but you didn't have a leadership position, but somehow deep inside of you, you found the way to pull it out of you and say, nope, I'm going to live bigger. I'm going to raise myself up and I'm going to go and start my own business, and I'm doing it. So more power to you, but it is all about the journey, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. But it seems like this question is going towards parenthood. And so I'm probably older than all of you. And so I'm going to bring it back to that real quick. So when I first started my husband and I first started our business, which was right out of college, we were in a recession at that point. So we're like, what are we going to do? Let's start a business. We had nothing to lose. We didn't know what the hell we were doing or what we were getting ourselves into. And then shortly after that, we had our kids, and OMG, it was hard. It was hard. Our business grew quickly and we were super busy, and I was trying to be the super mom. And so not only was I working at least 50 hours a week, 7 days a week, I was going into the school and I was volunteering and I was taking on the school gala and I was doing all this stuff. And I remember one day my youngest son was in kindergarten and I had to go sell gala tickets and I forgot him at home. I forgot him. Guess how that felt? Yep. So that was that big smack in the face. Like, you have got to change something. And so just getting back to this, what I have learned, so learn from my wisdom, is I learned to put in place something called the personal mission statement. And this is where it brought everything, it made it really clear. We've talked about elements of this through this whole conversation. And what it includes is you have your core values. What is most important to you? Then what are your drives? What motivates you? What gets you excited, right? So for me, I love business. It fires me up. It's part of my core. It's what I need to be doing to not go into like some kind of crazy, weird depression type of thing, right? And then what are you really good at? Your zone of genius. And so you combine those three things and you create a personal mission statement, which is 1 to 3 sentences. So in that, I realized my family was super important. Creating memories, super, super important. But I also need to be balancing with work, right? So I needed to have that fulfillment in order to feel good. And so that's still my same personal mission statement. I weave it into everything that I do. So getting to your point, Eleni, because I think it was really critical. And as moms, especially as women, we question ourselves. We constantly have so much damn guilt over everything. It's debilitating, right?
Yes.
And so now my kids, I have a 24-year-old and 27-year-old, and I spent a ton of time with them. I made sure we had those memories. We went traveling. We didn't spend money on our house. Instead, we would spend money on creating memories, because I was so clear on what was important. And so because of that, I think I still had a ton of guilt over, I still worked a gazillion hours, but it made it so that I was fulfilling what I needed, because we have to take care of ourselves too, right? But also I was able to focus on what really mattered, big picture. My kids now are doing great. Both my kids are happy. They are living their best lives. And it's because of that foundation. They also saw me role modeling. So that's kind of wrapping it up.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just add something quickly, Michael?
Of course.
I love what you're saying, Midori, and all of you, because it's not what we tell children, it's what we show them. And I just want to say that all of us are leading by example. My boys have seen me fail at so many things I can't even keep count. But they're also seeing me take risks. They're also seeing me pivot. They're also seeing me, start over and over and just be resilient and just keep embracing new chapters, and personally, professionally, on every level. And I feel that you are all embodying that as well. And I think that that's so important to give children. You're modeling for them. Because I could tell my children, don't give up, keep trying for the team, or keep trying to make the honor roll. My son's putting in college applications right now. I could say, go for those D1 schools, go for this, go for that. He sees me going for goals that are, supposedly unattainable. And I'm like, I'm going for something that I will probably fall flat on my face for, but it's okay, because I'll get there and I'll figure it out along the way. And I think that that's so important to give children, and even people in our lives, not even young children. I know so many adults that are inspired by what I'm doing. I have a friend who's a hairdresser for over 20 years, and he's a business owner. And he messaged me this morning and was like, I'm so moved by what you're doing. and that you're giving back to children, and that you're following and pursuing this passion and this dream, because I talked about it to him when I sat in his chair for so many, many years. And it took 8 years for this dream to come to fruition. It didn't happen overnight. And I think that's important to share too, Michael, because so many people listening, they see us and we're putting on our Sunday best and, we're doing our thing. It doesn't happen overnight. And social media, everything happens magically and everybody's underwear drawers organized and it drives me nuts. But I'm like, that's not real life.
Did you have any questions for the group, Eleni?
Actually, I'm just wondering if you had a time management advice, because that's something that I still struggle with. I have alarms set for everything and I have different apps. And sometimes I feel like I have too many apps. So yeah, I guess like just managing time, because as entrepreneurs, there is never, every single day is different. And I'm juggling 3 different careers between my modeling and my publishing and my teaching. So some days I don't even know what day of the week it is. So I would love just some advice on time management.
Okay, so I'll just go really quickly. I write out a 24-hour time block for me, and I'm very aware of what day it is. So Mondays through Thursdays are strictly work days. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays are flex days. In the beginning, I don't recommend you making all of those flex days. I recommend you making maybe one flex day, like a Friday flex day, and then a Saturday and Sunday fun day. So, but for me, I like working. That's just my balance. I would rather do 60% work and then 40% everything else, family, fun, etc. I write everything out. I know when I'm going to go to the gym, and I know when I'm going to go to work. I know when I have meetings, and everything is scheduled around my meetings, scheduled around my recordings. There's a certain time that people can come onto the podcast. That's it, right? So if they can't make it, then we can figure something out. If I can have some time in my flex days, but on the days that we do recordings, Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have to figure that out. And if they can't figure it out, then I look at my flex days. And the flex days are typically if I don't have any meetings that day, or if I have a spot in between meetings that I can put in a recording for someone that I want on the podcast. So I just understand my schedule really well, and I write it all down. I have the phone, Google Calendars is my friend. I have 2 apps I use. I use Tick, and it's another one.
That one. Tick, not
Tick.
TikTok.
Nope, Tick.
Okay, sorry.
Tick. And this is also going to be a TikTok clip. All right, I'll make this a TikTok clip. All right, so this could be a TikTok clip with the app Tick. And then there's one other app, I forget the name of it, but it's a scheduler app, and it basically tells you when you can work, when you're supposed to read, and it gives you reminders. And I'm going to give that to you. It's only Android though, so if you have Apple,
love that.
Yeah, so if you have Apple, it's not for Apple, it's only for Android. So it's a really good one. But if you have an Android phone, I'll remember it, and I'm going to send it to you. But that's how I do it. Amy, I don't know how you do yours.
Well, I love Google Calendar. So one of the things that I do, and I think Midori was talking about this earlier, just like looking at everything that's important in your life. I don't necessarily have a mission statement, so I like that. I'm pull that. But like putting everything out and then saying like, okay, what are the most important things, and putting those into my calendar first. So time with family, time with my husband, time in my business, time to visit my aging parents, time to visit my husband's aging parents. We're smack in the middle of the sandwich generation, and we have 4 parents in the Baltimore area where we live. We're all over 80 now. So it's a real thing for a lot of us to just really see, like, to make sure that those things are in place. So we have like inside Google Calendar, I have several different calendars that are different colors. So I have like an exercise calendar, so I can see, like, does purple show up at least 3 times this week? I also have speaking as a calendar. That was a big thing this, and without telling you about all my calendars, but putting a specific speaking calendar was helpful to me, because like I said earlier, I want to make sure I have opportunities to speak, and then I'm putting in at least 5 hours a week is my goal around speaking. So being on a podcast, working on a talk that I'm going to giving a live talk, visiting a mastermind and giving a talk, right? Like anything, or I'm working on a new talk, incorporating new concepts, whatever. I want to make sure that doesn't get to the end of the list. I also have I'm working on a certification right now around life coaching. So I have a certain amount of hours a week that I'm putting into education, but not letting that like overtake my life. Right. So that's how it works for me. And then I do only see, well, not only, but I see clients Tuesday through Friday. So if I need appointments on Monday, that's kind of my, I guess, your idea of like a flex day. But a lot of that will be like appointments or things that I may do with my kids that I wouldn't necessarily do on the other days.
Midori?
Hopefully
What do you
that's helpful.
speak on, Amy?
I'm sorry, what?
What topics do you speak on, and how do you find those opportunities?
So I speak there, I give a couple of different talks. One is 3 steps to turn your budget from surviving into thriving. And so I talk to different groups of women, I talk to realtors, I talk in libraries, I talk to, you know, like I've done that, like how I've gotten on podcasts using Podmatch, but I've also just like pitched a podcast, and then I've pitched to different companies to give talks to. I've given talks in like, I don't know, a lot of different places, basically. But then I also talk specifically about our mindset around money and the blocks that we have to go from scarcity to abundance, specifically with business owners. I love hanging out with business owners who are like, don't really know their numbers, and they hide behind not knowing their numbers to not go from like status, like just getting by to actually kicking ass. Like they have really no idea about their numbers. I love hanging out in that space because some of it's mindset, but then I also am a financial nerd, and some of it is about spreadsheets. Let's be real. So yeah, but I'm happy to talk to you about that offline.
I love that you put, and I'm going to put that in my pocket and use that you put down speaking as one of you know how many hours per week you want to shoot for. That's huge because that's how you're leveraging your brand and getting your name out there. So I'm going to share that with my members. So thank you for that. That's awesome. You know what I use is I like writing things down. I'm just a super nerd with this. And so I have a spreadsheet. Like I am so religious about this, and I have down exactly what I'm going to do. But one thing that has really helped, Eleni, is having a theme per day. I went through a program by Stephen Kotler. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he is a peak performance kind of a guru. He's pretty well known. And he talks about chunking things. So what I've done is I chunk days. So in general, I know the days that I'm going to be open for talking with clients, or for doing promotion, or for being on podcasts. I have that theme based on what my goals are for them. I do it by quarters. What are my goals per quarter? What do I need to be focused on? And then I go even further and I chunk down time. And so I try to work in 90-minute chunks. I know for myself, that's kind of my sweet spot, but then I take a break so that I'm optimizing my time. So by the end of the day, I'm like, today was a kick-ass day. It's not always like that. There's a lot of days where I'm like, oh, I don't know that I got everything done, or that I even got anything done. But in general, that really helps to keep my mind focused so that I'm getting far more done in a shorter period of time.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. You know what I realized, you guys? When I'm teaching, I was talking to this with a fellow educator. I feel like I actually get to eat and I get more of a break. I swear to God, despite the fact that it's insane and it's so busy and it's so hectic, because there's bells and you have to leave the class and you have to take lunch and you have to have a prep. And I'm like, I'm trying to incorporate more bells in my day. And I'm like, maybe I need to do more of a teaching scheduled, and then it'll help me. Yeah, because some days I'm like, I didn't eat. Did I eat? Did I take my vitamins? I'm like, what is going on? I'm not that old. I can't be forgetting to eat.
Yeah, definitely. It's always it's difficult in the beginning because you have to figure out what works for you, and then from there you can make some adjustments. And no schedule is going to be perfect all the time, and you always have to be flexible, especially if you have a family, because you never know what can happen and you have to put the value somewhere different. So I remember when my son was born, a month early, might I add, I had workshops, clients, everything, hundreds of, no, it wasn't hundreds, tens of thousands of dollars. Lost it, had to give it all up. He was more important. So I had to figure out what I needed to do. So things change. So sometimes your schedule is not going to happen, and you just have to kind of, move with it. The world is going to move you, and you just have to sometimes move it, and sometimes you have to move the world. Grace, do you have any questions for us?
I don't have questions, but Eleni, I'm in the same boat as you, is working on figuring out my schedule. But what is really helpful for me is meditating and also sleeping. So I go to bed early, I get up early, where I have a few hours of nobody needs me. And also, I've been meditating for 12 years. So, I've had a lot of practice, but the days that I miss a meditation, it's like there's no focus and everything's scattered. And I feel like I'm running from here to there. But the days I meditate, which is most days, even if it's a hectic day, I can focus better, I can be productive, and it just helps manage my day. I see a huge difference between the two. And then one last tip I have is that if I'm feeling stuck, instead of struggling, I usually go outside, take a walk, or just put whatever it is away. And usually when I'm meditating, the answer just comes to me. It's usually about software. I'm usually stuck on how to figure out something on a software. And yeah, it's really amazing. It just comes to me. And after my meditation, I'm like, okay, let's try it out. And it works. So those are my
Thank you for sharing that.
time management
one
tips.
thing I won't compromise on is the meditation. That's the only thing that keeps me sane. That's the only way I can juggle all these things and not lose myself, is the meditation. I don't know a single entrepreneur, Michael, who does not meditate. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Midori?
So you're wondering if I have a question?
Yeah, if you have a question for anyone. You don't have to have one.
Let's talk about problem solving, because Grace, you brought that up. You talked about how you'll meditate and then the solution will come. And this is something I hear often from my members and my clients is they're trying to problem solve. They get stuck somewhere. And I see this all the time with entrepreneurs, especially newer entrepreneurs, is they get stuck and then they stay stuck for way too long. And part of being really successful, especially when you study people who are in leadership positions and they've been extremely, they have incredible results, they're able to make decisions quickly and then they stick with it unless they need to later on pivot, but they have a system. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you guys use for problem solving? And I'll share just a really quick one that works crazy well, but it's called the MacGyver method. I don't know if you guys ever saw the show. I think maybe I saw it once. Yeah. So it's based on him and how he would just do all these crazy things and he'd solve problems. But what you do is if you have a big problem, you just can't solve it. You took a walk and it didn't work, or you meditated and it just didn't work. What you do is you write it down. What's the problem I'm trying to solve? You fold it and you put it away. You don't think about it again. You put it in your nightstand or wherever. And then you come back the next day. And if it didn't come to you in the middle of the night, what you do is you take a journal or a piece of paper and you just start writing. And if it still is not coming out, write about anything, write a song, write anything. It doesn't matter. But what will happen after a few minutes is your subconscious starts kicking in and it will start coming up with solutions and it'll just start coming out of your pen. It's really kind of crazy, but it works. So that's my tip. But I think I'd love to hear what everyone else does too.
For problem solving, I have a family text where my mom, my brother, my sister, and if I'm stuck on something, I'll just kind of throw it into chat. And they kind of give me some fuel, I guess, to go off of and to get that brain moving. And I'm like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And then once I start to get some good ideas, I bring it to my team. So like my assistant, I'll say, hey, what do you think about these ideas? And then I can get more feedback and I kind of bounce it off those two systems there.
I love that. I will I don't know if it's similar to this MacGyver, but when I'm stuck on something or if my clients are stuck on something, we'll do a thought download, which truly is just taking out my notebook and writing 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 and writing. ad nauseum, as long as I need to write, to get all the thoughts out there that are not related in any way necessarily to that problem that I'm experiencing. I mean, because with my coaching, it's like those thoughts are creating your results. So that the challenge that you're experiencing is related to a certain extent the thought you're thinking about that challenge. So I'm trying to get everything out there and having my clients do that. And then similar maybe to what you're saying, Midori, but like solutions start to rise to the surface from there, a different way to look at it. Or typically what I see is that like, oh, I didn't really actually realize, whether it's from my subconscious or not, that that thought was at play and that was limiting my success in this area. So I'm trying to bring some of those limiting beliefs and thoughts to the surface through that download. And that helps me.
Mm-hmm. I did that in college.
Nice.
Just writing out until I couldn't write anymore.
Yeah.
Eleni?
What I do is, I don't know, this might sound kind of crazy, but it's almost like talking to myself. I actually record myself, but what I do is I take myself out of the equation, because most of the times, like, I feel like when there's a problem, it's usually due to mindset and a limiting belief. So what I do is I take the problem and I give it to somebody else. And then I pretend that I'm talking my sister, my sister has this problem. How would I help her solve this problem? And then I just literally record myself and I start talking to my sister. And right away, it's not my problem. So it's like a weight has been lifted. And then I usually give great advice. So I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize I had this valuable, all these great lessons in me. I'm like, holy shit. So I'm like, that's awesome. So I start talking to her. I'll record it. Sometimes I have it transcribed. I'm not even kidding. And then I'll just play it back and be like, wow, this is awesome. And I just pretend that I'm my own best friend and my own, because I can't always call my sister. I have 3 sisters and I usually reach out to like one sister in particular, but she has a job and she has a family and I can't always reach out to her. So doing that, like taking the problem, making it someone else's, and then on the sounding board, and then recording it, and then listening back usually gets me to a solution.
That's really smart, Eleni. I never would have thought of that. But like I'm the person that a lot of people come to advice for. And so I have so few people that I ask advice for. So that sounds like something that can be very helpful to me. But aside from, mostly if I'm stuck, I put it away. And like I said, meditation helps the solution come. But also after I put it away, I try to move my body. So it doesn't have to be exercise. It could be washing the dishes. It could be vacuuming the floor. It could be weeding the garden, doing some yoga. I find the motion creates emotion. And I think it's the same, it sounds, as when everybody's writing stuff. When you write it, you take it out of here and you put it on the paper, and then it's gone out of here. And then you're getting rid of all that clogged up stuff so the solution can come. And it's kind of the same thing with motion. I just move my body. And, to be quite honest, sometimes I stay in the stuckness too. And then it's kind of like then I got to get myself out of it. But I have to say that is something I'm totally working on, is getting, finding solutions to being stuck. So everything was very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. Movement is everything.
Yeah. And all of that is going to be very important to help with problem solving. And there's going to be different ways, and I'm sure you might have different ways, to the audience members. So put it in the comments below if you have a different way too. You want to share it with people, and that's important too. And now the moment of truth, right? We're getting down to the final bits of the podcast. And before we go, I want to have everyone plug their business. I want them to plug themselves, sell themselves for 60 seconds, and tell people how they can find them. And if they wanted to leave them with a motivational quote at the end of what they say, that is perfectly acceptable too.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, kind of said this at the beginning, but as far as plugging myself, I'm definitely someone that likes to work with specifically with women around their finances. If they feel like they've got organized, stressful finances, if they feel like, man, there's this thing I really want to do, that's something I want to accomplish, a leap I want to take in my life, personally, professionally, but finances are getting in the way of me doing that. Working with a financial coach is addressing those limiting beliefs and getting systems in place so that you can take action. And my website is amyscottcoaching.com. That's it.
So what I want to put out into the universe is my author visit and keynote speaking. I am so obsessed with inspiring children and youth in particular, because I feel like that's when they need us the most. And that's when all those beautiful kernels of wisdom get absorbed. So I want to inspire young minds and elevate their consciousness and just motivate them to be the best version of themselves and to breathe belief into them. I see that it's so powerful when I'm talking to children and even other teachers and educators, and they see and they hear about my story and my history and my struggles, and they're like, wow, if you could do it, I could do it. And I think that that's so powerful. That just gets me going, and I love sharing that. So keynote speaking, author visits, I have decided to waive my author visit fees, not because I don't know my worth, but because I want to impact more lives and I want to add more value. So you know what? Anyone listening, if you know a principal, if you work in a school, I'm here in New York, but I have gone to Montana. I went cross country. There's nowhere I won't go. So I want to make myself accessible and really connect with our youth and inspire them either through my author visits or keynote speaking. And a great quote, I don't know, I'm trying to remember if it was Viola Davis or where I heard this, but she said, if you're not feeling fulfilled, it's because you're stopping at success instead of significance. And that really spoke to me, because there have been times in my life where I had more money in my bank account and I had the perfect marriage. I was literally the model wife. And things were crumbling and I felt unfulfilled. And, now I feel like there's so much value and significance in what I have to offer. And success is an inside job. And this is the most successful I have ever been. And this is, I think that we talk about getting to a certain destination, enjoy the journey. Because if you told me that my children's book, Vicky Patrick, was on the New York Times bestseller and sold 1 million copies, I believe you, because this is what it feels like right now. And I'm not there yet, but the journey there sometimes is where we get our greatest fulfillment.
So, as I mentioned, I'm a lifestyle health coach, and I help people bring traditional wisdom into the modern day life. And I also help them make small, consistent changes to their everyday lives. So the way I view health is that it's the sum of your everyday habits. So I help people change the habits with the subconscious. I help people with energetics and mindset, but also with choosing food, prioritizing sleep, getting body movement, which can be easy as, I don't know if you've noticed, but I stand up. So just standing all day can usually be adequate body movement for people. And then also managing stress. And there's a lot of other things I do too. Like I help women balance hormones and, help people with detox. And I also have, digestion health program as well. And people can find me at optimalhealthwithgrace.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook as Grace Spinkovitz.
So since this is January and we're all thinking about our big, fat, exciting things that we want to achieve this year, this kind of wraps up all the things that we've been talking about. I have collaborated with a gentleman named Parker Nash. He worked at Nike for 11 years. And he is a marketing super geek. He's awesome. And he can write. He's a copywriter as well. And so we've partnered and we're doing a 6-month program for startups and for entrepreneurs who want to really accelerate. And it's an intensive, we meet every other week, and you go through a very systematic program to help with the foundation, help with your marketing, help with your outreach, just all of it. And you can find out more at fuel2fire.co/business-accelerator. So I have that going on. And then as far as a quote, I wrote this a while ago, but this kind of summed up how I feel. When you get up from being ground into the dirt, you're more likely to grow.
Yeah. And I want everyone to check out all of their links, all of their programs. They will be in the description box below, so you don't have to look too far. And kind of going off what Grace said a little bit earlier about missing a day of meditation, it reminded me of a musician who talked about his practice habits. He says, if I miss a day, I notice. If I miss 2 days, my wife notices. If I miss 3 days, the world notices. And this episode right here, I want you to listen to it once, maybe 2 times, maybe 3, depending on how often you want to listen to it. But listen to it more than once, because you're going to find so many nuggets in our conversation, and you're going to pick different things up, because depending on where you are mentally, you're going to pick things up. And we had so many valuable conversations in this group episode. So I want you to really dive deep into it and really dive deep into the businesses of these wonderful ladies, because it is going to make an impact in the world. What they do is making an impact already. They are valuable. You just have to understand your value. I'd like to thank everyone for watching the first episode, or the first edition of the group session of Coaching in Session. And I want to thank my wonderful guests for being on. Great conversations today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Congrats, Michael.
Thank you.
So cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for watching the first group episode of Coaching in Session. We're going to be bringing more wonderful coaches that have been on in the past onto the podcast. And I encourage everyone to check out these guests here: Amy Scott, Eleni Fuaxis, Great Spinkovitz, and Midori Verity.